Hi, John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Thursday, December 11th, 2025. I apologize for the late report. I had a busy morning, wasn't able to get to my computer until a little bit ago. So, anyway, I opened up the computer and I was looking at the map and I see this red blotch very close to Sloviansk, and boom. The Russians are basically on the outskirts of Sloviansk. So, surprise, surprise, after the total failure of the 2022 attempt by Russia to coerce President Zelensky in agreeing to autonomy for the ethnic Russian Ukrainian oblasts and being caught short-handed in Ukraine. Remember, the Ukrainians have, at that time, about 1 million or so soldiers, and the Russians entered in towards Kiev with somewhere between 50 to 80,000 soldiers, so hardly full scale. It was more of an attempt to coerce the Kiev regime. It failed, and suddenly they were left scrambling. So they abandoned the areas close to Kiev, and they came to an area that they could defend. So the story of this war has been the 2022 Russian failure, and now we're in 2025. We're certainly seeing the Russians start to retake cities which they had to abandon in 2022. Today we heard of the fall of Seversk, and Mirnograd is just about there. There are two urban areas that are being separated into two chunks, and the Russians will clean that up probably within a number of days. So the Pokrovsk, Mirnograd cities will fall. The city of Seversk has fallen. The city of Liman, which the Russians are now in the outskirts, that will fall. The defenses here, Ukrainian defenses, have really fallen apart. Much of the fire brigade that Ukraine has to put out fires on the front line was sent up towards Kupiansk to try to get a quick made for TV victory to push the Russians out of Kupiansk. Kupiansk is a city of maybe when it was populated about 14,000. Small city, doesn't have a very well fortified area, so that city has actually changed hands a few times. So the Russians could be pushed back, but now that they are close in that area, I don't think that the Ukrainian effort in Kupiansk will be permanent. So, but they continue to lose cities that are very important symbolically. The Russians on the outskirts of Liman. They also conquered Volchansk in the Kharkiv Oblast, a city that Ukraine had held for quite some time. Basically, the city had been reduced to rubble, and there was no places for the Ukrainian soldiers to establish themselves in to fight from, and they fell back. The Russians are now moving forward there. So here we have the city of Sloviansk here to the bottom left. We have Liman to the right, and between them is 10 miles. So this is basically an area that the Russians will now enter as they encircle Liman. So in the process of encircling Liman, they enter into the urban area of Sloviansk. And Sloviansk is a very important symbolic city the fall of Sloviansk would be disheartening for the Ukrainian forces after fighting for years to try to push the Russians back, only to find themselves pushed back and to start losing these key symbolic and um, uh, strategically important cities. So Ukraine is about to lose Guliapole. That area will start to collapse as the Russians head towards Zaporizhia. So basically, in the springtime, we should see the Russians approaching Sloviansk, and in the summertime, possibly Zaporizhia. It's still far away, but it's 40 miles away from where the Russians are and where the forces are in Guliapole. And as that force continues to push forward, they will continue to isolate Zaporizhia. And Zaporizhia is basically on the wrong side of the city, which means that it's very favorable to Russia. So anyway, once they get to Sloviansk, then the distance from Sloviansk to Kramatorsk is even less, maybe about 5 miles. So you have 10 miles here from where the Russians are in Liman to Sloviansk, and then 5 miles to Kramatorsk. When the Russians start moving this way, they will begin to try to encircle the city of Sloviansk, and in the process begin to enter the urban area of Kramatorsk. So this is all kind of falling apart for the Ukrainian forces in this area, and they will need some additional fire brigades pulled from somewhere. It's hard to say if they have really anything left in their tank to try to mount a counterattack or keep the Russians at bay while the Europeans decide what they want to do, either economically, politically, or militarily. So, but this is very bad news for Ukraine, very good news for Russia. 10 miles to Sloviansk. If they're advancing at a snail's pace, they should be to Sloviansk maybe in March. And if we look at the bigger map, as we zoom out a little bit, we see these strange kind of curved extension of the Russian forces. So we're really starting to see what appears to be the creation of two cauldrons. Eventually could be a cauldron, or at least three-sided encirclement. So anyway, as you can see, what happened in Pokrovsk, they encircled it and then they closed that off, and now there isn't anyone getting in and anyone getting out. So that is basically the goal up here, to encircle Konstantinovka until they have it completely surrounded and isolated, and the Ukrainian forces don't have a way to get either rotation, food, or military equipment, or any other kind of support. So you can see that now forming in the Konstantinovka area, and eventually we will get this kind of semi-cauldron in the Sloviansk and Kramatorsk area. So once the Russians get to Sloviansk, this area will begin to collapse like a series of dominoes falling over, and it is just not looking very bright now for the Ukrainians. And you say, well, they still have so much they need to conquer, but all of this is there are no defenses set up here by the Ukrainians, really very limited. Once they get through Sloviansk, they should pick up the pace, maybe towards the fall, maybe towards August, into the western reaches of this oblast. So, anyway, I I find that that all these conversations about 28-point plan and 20-point plan and 19-point plan, all this is just distracting people from the facts on the ground, which I like to focus on, and that is that this situation for Ukraine is becoming critical. They don't have seemingly any more fire brigades to put out fires on their front line, and this is only going in one direction. So now they want to organize some elections so that they could do a ceasefire for 6 months. The Russians are never going to buy into that. And of course, even less to have foreign troops on the Ukrainian territory, which would become a target for the Russian artillery. So Ukraine is running out of options, and they can have buckets of money in Kiev. They can have every single toilet in Kiev can be a golden toilet, but this isn't going to save Ukraine in this part of their country. And as this collapses and the Russians start to advance and take the safety off some of their military efforts, we could see their military campaign speed up. So anyway, this is my brief report about 10 miles to Sloviansk. And if you have a comment to make, please do so below. This is the military summary map. So this is militarysummary.com. You're welcome to go to that website as well and check it out yourself. So I appreciate you joining me today, and if you like this video, hit the like button, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.